Huston Smith is revered as an authority on the world's major religions and is the author of 15 books, including The World's Religions, Why Religion Matters, and now his latest, Tales of Wonder, Adventures Chasing the Divine. I wanted to hear about his views on death, and particularly about his views on the near-death experience. So he invited me to his Berkeley, California home for this interview. Dr. Smith, thank you so much for inviting me to your home.
It's a pleasure to be with you.
Now, Dr. Smith, as you know, I've been interviewing people who have had near-death experiences, and I found these stories very compelling, very moving, and it occurred to me that since they're of a religious or a spiritual nature, that perhaps I could find out how these experiences might coincide with the various world religions and how the different religions feel about death. So with that in mind, since you're the expert on the world religions, I thought
we can forego that, but I am interested.
Okay. So my beginning question for you is, what is your understanding of death?
That there is no such thing. It doesn't exist. Now, that sounds very bizarre. We'll leave it at bizarre. Our bodies, of course, die. And as the Asian Indians say, we drop our bodies, but our consciousness does not die. It simply modulates into a different mode. The light on the camera, on the television screen, never goes out. Different images appear, and before we drop the body, we have no idea what those images will be, but the light will be there, and there will be images of some sort upon them. Now, to continue with the idea that there is no such thing as ultimate death, I'm going to invoke a discovery of Einstein. One of his discoveries, one of his three most important discoveries, was that matter and energy are convertible. You cannot destroy matter. It's impossible to destroy it, but it can phase into energy. And when the matter disappears, it is still there, but in the form of energy. Mm-hmm. And when the same holds with us, when the matter in our body dies, our bodies die. Why, since matter cannot be destroyed, it transmogrifies, you might say, into energy. Now, we cannot well, I'm fumbling here because I think I've just made the point, unless you want to ask me.
Okay. Do the major world religions all feel this way?
Yes, they all feel, in the Western idiom, there is a heaven. And unfortunately, there's a downside of the hell. But our spirits, when our bodies die, they either go to everlasting bliss in heaven, or else the metaphor is hellfire, but that's only a metaphor.
What is it a metaphor for?
It's a metaphor for the pain, because imperfection cannot go into union with perfection unless the dross is cleaned off of it. That's what the metaphor of hell and fire and burning is, the cleaning up our act before we can merge with the divine after death.
In the Buddhist view, the ego is illusory and there's no soul. But yet, in Buddhism, there is reincarnation. So if the ego is illusory and there's no soul, what is it that reincarnates?
Yeah. Well, let me qualify this matter of there being no soul. When I pressed His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who almost miraculously I've had a 65-year friendship with him, on there being no soul, he said, well, actually, there is a kind of a soul. He said, if I am chilly, I put the sweater on myself. I don't put the sweater on you. Mm-hmm. So there is something like but by no soul, the Buddhists mean no entity that is static. It always goes on into reincarnation. Now we think of reincarnation as being a kind of a strange idea of Buddhists, but actually we all reincarnate. The question is, or the difference is, we do not all reincarnate on this earth in a human body. Now that is idiosyncratic, but we do, since the light on the television screen never goes out, why we do reincarnate in another form. And since matter cannot be annihilated, why, that means that our bodies, as I've said, modulate into energy. And it's back and forth between matter and energy.
How can one know what death is and what follows if no one has come back to talk about it?
Well, we do not know what follows our death. What we do know is that there is no total death for individuals. But as to what it's like when matter turns into energy and so on, why, that remains a mystery to us.
In a near-death experience, if the brain has flatlined along with the other vital functions, then my question is, where is the near-death experience taking place? It brings up questions such as, what is consciousness and where does it come from? I know there are some people who think that the brain is like a receiver, like a radio or a TV, as you said in the very beginning. But it's an intriguing question. If the brain has flatlined, then where, if I can use that word, is consciousness, and where is one experiencing a near-death experience?
I think that William James was on the right track when he proposed that the human consciousness, the brain, instead of being a generator, that is, we begin with the microorganisms and cells and so on, and then build up to brains. But William James entertained positively the opposite view, that instead of a generator, our brains are reducing valves that intrinsically they are omniscient, but we couldn't deal with omniscience. And so therefore, the brain has to bring this universal consciousness, infinite consciousness, down to manageable form. And I go with him in thinking, we can't prove that, of course, but thinking that that is very likely the case.
People who have near-death experiences report it to be the most profound and the most real experience of their lives, rendering them oftentimes permanently changed. They become more loving, less materialistic, more empathic, and they actually seem to actualize the end result that religions strive for. And yet, Christians often oppose the idea of the near-death experience because they've been told that we're supposed to be judged on the last day. Therefore, how can all these people be meeting beings of light, which they call God, if the last day has not come yet?
Well, I am not one who holds the opinion that you quoted as the last day, and so on. So that cuts no ice with me.
Okay.
And but I am profoundly moved and persuaded by near-death experiences. Now, let me clarify there and come clean there. I have never had a near-death experience, but with Raymond Moody's Life After Death introduced this thing, this notion. I have received letters, and one of them I remember it was the most powerful letter dealing with this kind of subject I can imagine. The person was on a bicycle, and a car was coming towards him, and he lost control and realized that he was going to be hit. And when it did slam into his thigh, as it was approaching, he felt no fear. It's going to hit me. But in that split second, he reviewed first, as one often hears, and pretty standard of people who are drowning, that their entire life sort of fast forward, and they experience their entire life. This letter from the person said that happened to him, but then it was like rewinding the tape and going through his life again a second time. And this second time, he experienced the pain that he had caused people throughout his life. But it didn't end there. Rewind, went through the whole life experience, but this time he heard a voice, as it were, not audibly, but it was as if someone was saying, yes, you did cause people that pain, but you're finite, nobody is perfect. And the person reporting said, I felt forgiveness. So you might say the first time just like a motion picture but without sound. The second time was like sin, and he had sinned in all the harm, the pain he had caused others. But the third time felt to him like forgiveness.
Mm-hmm. Earlier you said that our faults, the pain that we've caused other people, has to be burned off before we can be purified to go to a realm that you would call heaven. In re-experiencing the pain we've caused others, that in a sense is kind of like this purgatory-like state that you're talking about.
That-
Because even though the life review is instantaneous, there's no time there, and so
I missed the word. There's
no time in this other realm.
Right.
And so I would imagine that if you can feel the pain that you've caused other people, in a way that would be like burning it off. And then at the end, being forgiven for it, once you've realized what you've done, it makes life into kind of a school, a learning situation in which you learn what it's like to be human, and you learn more what it's like to be spirit, I would think.
Well put. I wish I had said that.
Yeah. You've said that the central project of life is to shift the balance from self-centeredness to other-centeredness. This comes naturally for a person who's had a near-death experience because it's been driven into him in a very profound and deep way from a lived experience. But that's not so easily done for a religious non-near-death experiencer. And so my question is somewhat like this, and I'm not calling on you to be judgmental, but can authentic goodness be learned from religion?
I missed the word. What goodness?
Can authentic goodness...
Authentic was the word I missed.
Can authentic...
virtue be learned from religion?
Yes.
Well, if the religion is rightly practiced, yes. That is the object of it, to love others as do unto others as you would that they should do unto you. So it is like a school, as you said, in trying to incarnate that attitude.
There's I think a prayer that you love to recite, and it goes something like this. Lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to eternal life. What is the unreal to you?
All right. By the way, would you like to have that in the original Sanskrit? Asatoma sadgamaya tamasoma jyotirgamaya mritarma amritam gamaya om shanti shanti shanti. Peace, peace, peace. Hari Om.
Dr. Smith, you're sounding almost like a Kyoto monk. That was good. That was good. So what is unreal? What is the unreal that they're talking about in your view?
Well.
That was beautiful, by the way. I enjoyed it.
Unreal is what we perceive in our unenlightened state. Because another way of putting it is to say that the unreal is in the eye of the beholder, that with an ocular accuracy, we would see life as very very different. If in fact in the direction of perfection, but we optically do not have that perfect vision, and so what we perceive as mundane is unreal. It is an optical defect.
And can meditation clear this up? Can meditation bring clarity on this?
Well, it can help, but it's an endless task.
Do you have any concluding words about the near-death experience as it coincides with religion?
Well, I simply go along with those who in such experience feel that the rheostat is not going down, but it's going up. And it's a foretaste of the divine that we will experience more vividly and more certainly when we drop the body.
Well, Dr. Smith, thank you so much for this interview. I've learned a lot from it.
You're very welcome.